Mr. Schellenberger, seconded by Mr. McKenzie, moves that the House recognize the Stratford Festival's distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, southwestern Ontario, and Canada since its inception in 1953. Debate. The honourable member for Perth, Wellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to rise in the House today to ask my colleagues to support my private member's motion M545, that the House recognize the Stratford Festival's distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, southwestern Ontario, and Canada since its inception in 1953. As a lifelong supporter of the arts in Canada, I have seen firsthand how arts organizations not only enrich our culture, but also contribute greatly to the economy of the communities in which they are present. It is with this lifelong support of the arts that I say how very proud I am to represent the riding which is home to the world's renowned Stratford Festival. The Stratford Festival stages some of the most celebrated theatre productions in the world, and with its distinguished reputation, attracts a wealth of prominent actors, designers, and directors. While it originated as a Shakespeare festival, the modern Stratford Festival spans from April to October of each year and presents a wide variety of repertory theatre ranging from Shakespearean tragedies to musicals to contemporary pieces, and truly offers something everyone can enjoy. However, this theatre does much more than create great plays. As it also reaches out to the community and visitors by offering a wide variety of other opportunities to experience the arts in Canada. These types of activities include musical nights, backstage tours, forum events, educational workshops, and visits to the theatre's archives. These diverse experiences entertain and inform over 400,000 visitors every year. The Government of Canada has a strong history of supporting the Stratford Festival. On October the 1st, 1981, Canadian Heritage designated the Stratford Festival Archives as part of the Movable Cultural Property Program. Since 2007, the festival has received significant federal funding through programs such as the Canada Cultural Spaces Fund, the Marquee Tourism and Events Program, and the Canadian Arts and Heritage Sustainable Program. Clearly, the Government of Canada believes in supporting the Stratford Festival because it is important, and I am asking this House to recognize that importance. In addition to making a very significant contribution to Canada's rich culture, the Stratford Festival is also a dynamic economic force. It provides 3,000 people with full-time jobs, it attracts visitors from around the world, and the valuable tourist dollars brought into the region provide strength and prosperity to the retail, dining, and hospitality industries. In total, the Stratford Festival generates approximately $140 million in economic activity each year. The Stratford Festival is a tremendous contributor to the economy of southwestern Ontario. All of the people involved in the successful execution of the festival each year since the first performance in 1953 have taken part because of their immense love for the arts. Because of this passion, these people have and continue to be dedicated to presenting quality plays that allow them to share their love of the arts with, and above all else, entertain all people who attend the festival each year. My riding of Perth Wellington has been enriched by the presence of the Stratford Festival. Over the last decade, Stratford has consistently ranked as one of the cities in Canada with the highest quality of life. It has been ranked recently as one of the most intelligent communities in the world. The recent addition to the University of Waterloo Digital Media Campus in Stratford may not have happened were it not for the presence of this world-class festival. The fine people of Stratford and our surrounding communities have over the decades welcomed people from all over who have come to see the festival and who have decided to come again and again, and some even to stay. As a result, this has allowed for unique communities, culture, and industries to develop. Neighborhoods and neighboring towns have been able to showcase, preserve, and enhance their own heritage and cultural offerings. People who have come to work in Stratford and live in the area have traveled all over the country, spreading and strengthening our artistic communities, as well as exporting our own theatrical know-how across the globe to various corners of the world. The Birmingham Conservatory for Classical Theatre is one example of the Stratford Festival helping to strengthen the artistic community in Canada. The conservatory was started to help teach and prepare talented actors for the rigorous requirements of acting in classical theatre. Each year, selected graduates of the theatre training program are paid and offered to contract with the Stratford Festival following completion of the conservatory work. Further from home, the Stratford Festival was involved itself in the Sharing a Dream initiative, an international development project in Suchitito, El Salvador. Suchitito is a community in a region which has been marked by severe violence over the last several decades and which lack cultural spaces and infrastructure. The goal of the project has been to replicate the conditions that allowed the festival to flourish in Stratford over 60 years ago, helping the citizens of Suchitito to develop and transform itself into a self-sufficient center for the arts in Central America. The Stratford Festival has inspired scores to launch their own community festival, be it dramatic or otherwise. The festival has helped to teach Canadians everywhere that we can be cultural ambassadors and that we have important things to say. In 1952, when the Stratford Festival founder, Tom Patterson, proposed his idea to create a Shakespearean festival to Stratford City Council, he was given a $125 grant to seek artistic advice. Because of the hard work, dedication, and optimism of countless workers and volunteers, that $125 grant has resulted in a world-renowned cultural festival which creates and supports thousands of local jobs and contributes millions of dollars to the economy. This motion is recognition of the contributions, both economic and cultural, that Tom Patterson and each of the countless individuals involved in the Stratford Festival have made to Canada. However, passing this motion will also provide the festival with a very valuable promotional tool. Giving the Stratford Festival such a rare honor will allow festival organizers the opportunity to tell the world that it is of such cultural and economic importance to our country that it has been recognized by the Parliament of Canada. For these reasons, I ask the House of Commons to officially recognize the Stratford Festival and give it the special distinction it has long deserved. I strongly encourage all members of this House to support this motion. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for this motion. The Stratford Festival is indeed an incredible jewel of Canadian culture. We are so very fortunate. And I wonder, in recognition of the artistic creativity of the festival and its contribution to our cultural identity as well as to our economy, I wonder if the member opposite is concerned by the fact that since 2006, there's been a 2.5% decrease in funding to the Canada Council for the Arts. And would he support a return to 2006 funding and funding for new international touring, an opportunity to get our artists into international spheres?
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
I would like to just explain one thing, that the Canadian Council of the Arts has not been decreased. In fact, in 2006, I think there was quite a substantial increase to that Arts Council, somewhere around $50 million. I think right now today, the Canada Council of Arts gets around $180 million that they disperse to their peers as they see fit. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the motion that the member has brought forward in regards to Stratford. You know, we can talk about the economic and cultural benefits when we have festivals of this nature taking place in our community, and to have members of the House stand in their place and to acknowledge those contributions that help build our social and say economic fabric of our communities. I think that's a positive thing, and my question to the member is more so just to for me to make the statement and then maybe see if he might want to just add any other comments to his motion.
Member for Perth Wellington.
Oh, thank you. One thing that I'd like to just comment on is the $125 that was received by Tom Patterson back in 1952. He went to council and asked for $100 to go to New York City to seek advice on direction of how this festival might get started. The council didn't think $100 would do it, so they upped it to $125. And it's amazing that one idea, the reason it came about was that the railroad was leaving Stratford. They had a C&R shops in Stratford where they fixed locomotives. And he knew there was going to be an economic lapse for the town, for the city. And with that small idea, it's grown into what Southwestern Ontario, Stratford and Southwestern Ontario now receive $140 million business, all told. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank my friend and my neighbor, actually, for the great initiative here to recognize Stratford. I've seen many plays there myself, Mr. Speaker, going way back to my high school days, and certainly we can agree that the cultural and economic impact of Stratford is a great one. My colleague mentioned something about a village in Suchitito, El Salvador, that the Stratford Festival is partnering with, and I would love to hear a little bit more about that initiative, Mr. Speaker. I have some very good friends from El Salvador, and I have a heart for El Salvador. I'd like to hear my colleague just expand a bit on the issue that he mentioned in that context.
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank my colleague for that question. Suchitito is a program sharing a dream that was sponsored by the Canadian government and the Stratford Festival and the people in El Salvador. What it does is taken some of the gangs, some of the gang kids, some of those that were unemployed. It brought them into not just to be actors, but to be a theater company. And what Stratford does is not only send acting people down on times off, but stagehands, carpenters, electricians, and all those lighting people. So what they do is they train these people to do lighting, to be electricians. After a few years or a couple of years in that setting, they go out and they start jobs. It's helped to cut the gang wars that have gone on in that area, and it's very positive. And I give them all the credit, along with our government, for doing that job. Thank you.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for London, Fanshawe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to rise in this House today to speak to the motion put forward by the member for Perth Wellington, that the House recognize and support the Stratford Festival's distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, Southwestern Ontario, and Canada since its inception in 1953. We do indeed owe great thanks to Stratford's Tom Patterson, a journalist who saw his community suffering from the withdrawal of the railway industry and dreamed of turning his town into a cultural destination by creating a theatre festival devoted to the works of William Shakespeare. In 1952, Patterson did indeed receive a grant of $125 from Stratford City Council to begin pursuing that dream. Under the leadership of Harrison Showalter, a local soft drinks manufacturer who chaired the Chamber of Commerce subcommittee for the project, the journey began. In the spring of that same year, with the assistance of Dora Maver Moore, an early pioneer of Canadian theatre, the committee was successful in recruiting legendary British director Tyrone Guthrie as the festival's first artistic director. Guthrie's enthusiasm for the opportunity to produce Shakespeare's works on a revolutionary thrust stage was infectious enough to attract Lord Alec Guinness, who performed in the festival's inaugural performance of Richard III on July 13, 1953, on a stage created to Guthrie's specifications by world-renowned theatrical designer Tanya Moisevitz. That original theater was housed in a giant canvas tent. The second production of the inaugural season was a modern dress version of All's Well That Ends Well, directed by Guthrie. Both productions met with critical acclaim, and because of ticket demands, the initial 4-week season of the Stratford Festival was extended to 6 weeks. Tom Patterson's dream had become a reality. Robertson Davies, Canada's celebrated novelist, playwright, and critic, hailed the festival as an achievement of historic importance, not only in Canada, but wherever theatre is taken seriously. That is to say, in every civilized country in the world. And I would add, Mr. Speaker, that though we engage in theatre in this House, those theatrics do not detract from the important motion that we're debating here today. At the end of the festival's 4th season in 1956, the tent was dismantled for the last time, and work began on a permanent facility to be erected around the Moshewitz stage. Designed by architect Robert Fairfield, the new building was one of the most distinctive in the world of the performing arts. Its circular floor plan and pie crust roof paying striking tribute to the festival's origins under canvas. And I'd like to say, Mr. Speaker, that much of my research for today's motion comes from the Stratford Festival. I would like to thank the festival archivists and historians whose work is so obviously a labor of love. I congratulate the current festival director, Anita Gaffney, and wish to thank her for her assistance in providing festival information for me here today. On July 1, 1957, the Permanent Theatre opened its doors to the premier performance of Hamlet with Christopher Plummer in the title role. The festival was so successful that in 1956 it began renting Stratford's Avon Theatre for non-Shakespearean productions, such as musicals and concert productions, as well as film screenings. In 1971, the festival established its 3rd stage, renamed in 1991 in honor of founder Tom Patterson. And in 2002, the festival's 4th stage was created in the Studio Theatre, which debuted with a season of new Canadian work. Ever since that first season, the Stratford Festival has set benchmarks for the production not only of Shakespeare, Molière, the ancient Greeks, and other great dramatists of the past, but also such 20th century masters as Samuel Beckett, Anton Chekhov, Eugene O'Neill, and Tennessee Williams. In addition to acclaimed productions of the best in operetta and musical theatre, it has also showcased and in many cases premiered works by outstanding Canadian and other contemporary playwrights. The festival's artists have included the finest actors, directors, and designers in Canada and the world, and Stratford's magnificent stages have been graced by such internationally renowned performers as Brian Bedford, Douglas Campbell, Brent Carver, Hume Cronin, Brian Dennehy, Combe Fiore, Megan Follows, Lauren Green, Julie Harris, Martha Henry, William Hutt, Lorena McKinnott, Richard Monette, John Neville, Nicholas Pennell, Sarah Pauli, Douglas Rain, Kate Reed, Paul Schofield, William Shatner, Maggie Smith, Jessica Tandy, and Peter Ustinov, the glitterati of the world. Mr. Speaker, Tom Patterson's vision endures today in the Stratford Shakespearean Festival, recognized as a signature experience by the Canadian Tourism Commission. Since its inception, the festival has drawn more than 26 million visitors to the community, generated $139 million in economic activity each year, creating thousands of jobs and stimulating tax revenues of $75 million. Of all the visitors to the region, more than 95% of them come for the Stratford Festival. With an annual operating budget of $56 million, the festival receives Canada Council funding, Heritage Council funding. This is the box office revenues support. This and the box office revenues support training programs for actors, directors, the local community, and those who provide goods and services in the region. New Democrats understand the value of investment in the arts and the intrinsic value of building our cultural identity. And we also understand the value of investment in the arts for its economic value, creating good jobs and income for local communities and small business. The NDP platform supports restoring support for Canadian culture that has eroded over the past 20 years of Liberal and Conservative neglect. The Canadian Arts Coalition reports close to $200 million in permanent cuts to arts and culture spending to be implemented in the 2014-15 Canadian Heritage Portfolio, at the same time as cuts from the two previous Conservative budgets are still being rolled out. The cuts include reductions to Telefilm, the National Film Board, and Library and Archives Canada budgets, with the majority of the cuts being inflicted on the CBC. Moreover, while the government lauds its protection of funding to the Canada Council for the Arts, the reality is that on a per capita basis, government funding to the Council has actually declined 2.5% since 2005-06 fiscal year. All of these institutions have a valuable connection to the Stratford Shakespearean Festival. The CBC has filmed and broadcast productions of Shakespeare from the festival, and in an effort to diversify and expand its audience, the festival is embarking on exciting new projects, such as the live simulcast productions of its plays in widescreen movie theaters across the country. The Canadian arts community needs the support of its government in real funding in order to thrive, Mr. Speaker. These cuts not only represent a backwards ideology that stifles free thinking, they jeopardize creativity and community building. In very real terms, cuts to culture and the arts represent closed storefronts and unemployment for the people and communities that take their livelihood from the arts. Cuts to the arts and culture funding threaten the presence of Canada on the international stage. Mr. Speaker, it is remarkable to me that the connection between a thriving arts community and a thriving economy is lost on this Conservative government, and let's be honest here, on previous Liberal governments, which made the deepest cuts to the CBC and left promises to restore funding unfulfilled. The NDP proposes increased funding for the Canada Council and exploring the creation of a new international touring fund. The NDP supports these measures because they generate incredible economic activity and bring in tourist dollars. They are an important investment in Canadian arts and our people. The value of institutions such as the Stratford Festival to Canada's culture, identity, and economy is enormous. Aside from its entertainment value, the festival has incredible cultural, social, and economic impact. It contributes to the education of future generations of students, artists, actors, directors. Support for artists and creators is integral and vital to creating a thriving economy. Support for cultural events such as the Stratford Shakespearean Festival is key. In the words of Prospero from The Tempest, we are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. Shakespeare's musing on our mortality still ring true, Mr. Speaker, because governments come and governments go, but the theatre, its value, and indeed the Stratford Shakespearean Festival endure. It is up to all of us to protect that which is so precious, to make sure that it does continue to endure. Thank you.
Reprise de débat. L'honorable député de Saint-Laurent, Cotcheville.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. My speech today in snowbound Ottawa will be anything but a winter's tale. It will tell a story that began over 60 years ago, on July 13, 1953. On that day, what had until then been a midsummer night dream in journalist Tom Patterson's mind became reality. The Shakespearean lovers among my honorable colleagues will already have guessed what my intervention is about. On behalf of the Liberal caucus, as Liberal spokesperson for Canadian Heritage, I wish to express our support for a motion tabled by the member of Perth Wellington, which reads as follows. that the House recognizes the Stratford Festival distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, southwestern Ontario, and Canada since its inception in 1953. Mr. Speaker, this motion from the government side is all the more welcome in that so far, most of the government's forays into cultural affairs have been a comedy of errors. Let us hope that the motion will not amount to much ado about nothing, so that Canadian artists and cultural creators can finally breathe a collective sigh of relief and declare, now is the winter of our discontent. Mais au fait, pourquoi cette motion, Monsieur le Président? La question se pose, car un festival aussi réputé et prestigieux que celui de Stratford, le Stratford Shakespeare Festival, n'a certainement pas besoin d'une telle motion. Sa renommée à ce festival va bien au-delà de toute l'émotion que cette Chambre pourrait lui consacrer. Cette Chambre n'a jamais senti le besoin de débattre d'une motion reconnaissant la contribution économique et culturelle du Carnaval de Québec ou du Stampede de Calgary. Il ne viendrait pas à l'idée au Parlement autrichien de reconnaître que le Festival de musique de Salzbourg est un grand festival. Cela va tellement de soi. De même, dire que Stratford est un brillant festival, c'est dire une évidence incontestable, aussi incontestable que de dire que le soleil brille le jour et non la nuit. Alors, pourquoi cette motion? Certainement pas non plus pour partir un débat. Il n'y a pas matière à débattre, car aucune personne raisonnable ne pourrait être contre cette motion, c'est-à-dire contre le festival de Stratford. Y a-t-il un seul député qui dira, pour citer non pas Shakespeare mais Molière, « Cachez ce festival que je ne saurais voir ». Personne, bien sûr, ne dira cela du festival de Stratford, et certainement pas un Québécois, compte tenu de tous les Québécois qui s'y sont produits à ce festival, à commencer par l'illustre Jean Gascon, qui en fut le directeur de 1968 à 1974. Remarquez, si l'on y tient, je peux toujours trouver matière à débat. J'ai de l'imagination pour cela. Je pourrais dire, par exemple, que la motion telle que proposée ne rend pas pleinement justice au festival de Stratford. So, in order to ensure that all's well that ends well, I could suggest adding a few words to the member for Perth Wellington's motion as follows: that the House recognizes the Stratford Festival distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, southwestern Ontario, Canada, and the whole world since its inception in 1953. Ce que je crois, Monsieur le Président, c'est que le député de Perth Wellington, en déposant cette motion, a simplement voulu nous faire un cadeau d'adieu avant de quitter la vie politique. Il a voulu nous faire plaisir, à nous ainsi qu'à tous ceux qui se dévouent pour le Festival de Stratford et tous ceux qui l'aiment. Alors j'en profite et je m'abandonne au pur bonheur de déclarer toute l'admiration que j'éprouve pour le Festival de Stratford, et pour le plaisir de la chose, je continuerai à émailler ma tirade de citations shakespeariennes tout en demandant à mes collègues anglophones d'être indulgents pour mon accent qui, malgré tous mes efforts, restera toujours trop proche de celui de Molière ou de Tremblay pour être correctement shakespearien. Of the Stratford Festival, nobody can say love's labor's lost. This is because the festival has done an outstanding job of fulfilling its mandate to set the standard for classical theater in North America using Shakespeare as its underpinning. While focused on entertaining its audience with classical, contemporary, and musical theater productions, the festival has also brilliantly fulfilled at least three other missions. First, the festival trains, develops, and nurtures Canadian artistic talent. It taps into and helps cultivate the great talent our nation has to offer. Second, festivals like the Stratford Shakespeare Festival are major catalysts in strengthening the social and collective bonds of a community. The collaborative effort that goes into the organization of such festivals, the shared joyful experience participants and spectators live on opening day and at every performance, that really brings a community together. Just last month, I had the pleasure of visiting the great city of Stratford, meeting with members of the Stratford Arts and Culture community, as well as local citizens there. What struck most me was how much this festival is rooted in the identity of individual community members, how much this festival has helped individuals heighten their sense of community. Third, art festivals provide economic growth. As the city's largest employer, the Stratford Festival contributes significantly to the multifaceted nature of the city and surrounding region, drawing millions of tourists as well as art organizations and businesses who bring them substantial economic activity, investments, and local job opportunities. On behalf of the Liberal Party of Canada, I thank everybody involved in the Stratford Festival for the great success they have achieved in promoting Canadian culture on the international stage, for showcasing what Canada has to offer to the global arts and culture scene. With no end in sight, the Stratford Festival espouses the Bard's words in 12th night. Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Mr. Speaker, the Stratford Festival greatness was not thrust upon them. That greatness is the result of vision, talent, and hard work. Yeah. Let all Canadians and people abroad celebrate the festival's great success. Let them come to Stratford in great numbers to participate in the signature world-class experience. And now, with sincere apologies to the author of the Scottish play, I would remind all my colleagues that to vote or not to vote in support of M545, that is not the question. Yeah. Because there is no question that we must vote for it.
Yeah. Resuming debate, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Heritage.
Well, Mr. Speaker, thank you. I don't know if my colleague, who's a critic for the Liberal Party on Heritage and Culture Committee, I don't know if he stole a little bit of my thunder, or whether or not, Mr. Speaker, I will reiterate some lines that he may have used, only because not only are they famous and great and written by Shakespeare, they speak volumes to the topic that we are addressing tonight. So, Mr. Speaker, friends, parliamentarians, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come not just to praise the member of Perth Wellington, but to ask for support for motion M545, that this House recognize the Stratford Festival's distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, southwestern Ontario, and Canada since its inception in 1953. And, Mr. Speaker, my good friend was right. We must decide to support or not support, and that is the question this evening. By putting forth this motion, the member is highlighting the importance of the cultural sector to the Canadian economy and creating jobs. The Stratford Festival is a standout example of an organization that historically had an incredible cultural impact, locally, nationally, and internationally. And I'd like to speak about the economic impact of that festival, of this festival, Mr. Speaker, especially for the City of Stratford. In 2010, a Conference Board of Canada study concluded that just under $140 million of spending can be attributed to the Stratford Festival. $140 million is a significant contribution to the Stratford community, which has a population of just over 30,000 people, Mr. Speaker. And what's more, $76.5 million of revenue goes directly to local businesses as a direct impact of this festival. Revenue flows through various industries, including hotels, bed and breakfast, local cheese and agricultural producers, local shops and restaurants. Local businesses like these are the heart of our communities. These businesses are what help our communities succeed. The Stratford Festival achieved this through following a vision of cooperation with local business to come together and demonstrate the value of art in the community and working hard to make this vision come to life. The Government of Canada has been a proud supporter of the festival for many years. This government and previous governments have funded arts organizations to ensure that Canadians can enjoy our shared culture and heritage. We recognize that arts and culture make our identity, which makes us proud to be Canadian. This House's recognition of the cultural and economic impact of the Stratford Festival is also the recognition of the positive impact that private sector partnerships with the not-for-profit community can produce. A vibrant, innovative, resilient arts organization that makes a long-term positive social, cultural, and economic impact on its community. Since 2006, through funding programs at the Department of Canadian Heritage and the Canadian Council for the Arts, our government has invested significant taxpayer dollars into the Stratford Festival. This funding helps generate thousands of jobs in Ontario, including 2,500 jobs in Stratford alone. Considering the $139 million economic impact, it's a strong return on that investment, Mr. Speaker. And we know that our investment is delivering concrete economic results, and the Stratford Festival continues to think about ensuring its long-term sustainability by considering ways in which it can build other revenue streams. The Stratford Shakespeare Festival Foundation has used this program as leverage for private sector support and the festival's endowment fund, which is now valued at over $62 million, Mr. Speaker, making it one of the largest endowment funds held for a not-for-profit cultural organization in our great country. I encourage members to support this motion to recognize the Stratford Festival, the tremendous contribution that our cultural sector makes in our communities with the support from their public and private partners, and the hard work of the member from Perth Wellington. Mr. Speaker, I'll finish my remarks a little early to help speed along the passage of this motion, but I have one final thought. And before I conclude with that final thought, Mr. Speaker, I do want to indicate how much I've enjoyed debating and arguing with the member from Perth Wellington as to whether or not the Shaw Festival in Niagara is actually this country's epic display of both theatre and art, or whether it is the Stratford Festival. And I have to say, I hear from across the floor, Mr. Speaker, in a very nonpartisan way that we could share the honour. And I think if Niagara or Stratford were to display or to be displayed to the rest of the world, they will show an amazing example of what culture, what theatre, and what heritage is, not just to our country, but to the world, Mr. Speaker. And finally, to the member for Perth Wellington, who announced that he was retiring at the end of this Parliament. To quote Shakespeare, "No legacy is so rich as honesty." And if that's true, Mr. Speaker, this member has left a great and distinguished legacy, and I'm proud to have served with him in this House. The member of Parliament for Perth Wellington has been a dedicated public servant, serving his community as a councillor and as a local firefighter. He was a champion for his constituents and, of course, for the very essence of the motion this evening for the Stratford Festival. His efforts are appreciated, and his presence in this House will be missed. To borrow from Shakespeare one last time, Mr. Speaker, "Farewell, my brother, fare thee well. The elements be kind to thee, and make thy spirits of all comfort. Fare thee well." Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good luck to my good friend, the member from Perth Wellington.
Resuming debate. Reprise de débat. L'honorable député de Schellenberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My voice is a bit rough. Actually, if I can get some water. I am very pleased to rise in this House today to speak to this motion. I congratulate the member from Perth Wellington for bringing this forward. This motion is of, I guess, is a particularly warm motion for me, having spent 2 seasons as a company member of the Stratford Festival in 1992 and 93. I guess a trivia note, the current artistic director, Anthony Cimolino, my first production was in Romeo and Juliet, where Anthony Cimolino played Romeo with Megan Follows as Juliet back in the day. So I wholly support this motion. The intrinsic value of institutions such as the Stratford Festival is something that I will be focusing my remarks on. The Stratford Festival, as we've heard, has a very long and storied history, starting off with $125 by one of its citizens, Stratford citizens, Tom Patterson, turned into a $56 million a year budget through hard work and through dedication and through a vision. This massive endeavor, which now sports 4 stages in Stratford, started off in a tent. This massive endeavor, which started off as an idea of one man and brought in the likes of Sir Tyrone Guthrie and now Sir Alec Guinness, or the late Sir Alec Guinness, to launch this dream, has now turned into an enterprise that brings in over $136 million worth, or $139 million, Mr. Speaker, worth of economic activity to the Stratford region. And I think this is where we need to understand the intrinsic value of arts and culture, of the Stratford Festival. We look at, as I mentioned, the budget is some $56 million a year, but only 2.3% of that budget is funded by government through government grants. Now there are project grants that are granted to Stratford upon occasion, but its core funding is 2.3%, I believe, of its total budget, which means it generates an incredible amount of money for the amount of money that it is supported, gets government support for. Now, this is not to say that it should get more money. What it is saying is that the value that the government gets in return for every dollar spent on arts and culture is massive. It's not 1 to 1. It is not 1 to 5. It's 1 to 10. The 2007 Conference Board report showed that arts and culture is responsible for $85 billion worth of economic activity in this country. And in that time, I think the total arts funding was in and around $8 billion, a 10 to 1 return. Stratford grew from $125 venture to a $139 million revenue-generating entity. Mr. Speaker, the value, to take that a little further, the value of the work that Stratford does goes far beyond just the simple dollar value. Each year, there are close to 200 actors that are hired by the Stratford Festival. There are close to 100 creative teams, artisans, 250, stage crew, 80, front of house, 200, administrative and fundraising, 170. There's close to over 2,500 jobs that are created around Stratford Festival every single season. And this has been going on since 1953, albeit smaller numbers in the beginning, but it's grown to this. And over and above the massive talent that has been generated by the Stratford Festival, including such Canadian icons as Len Cariou, Brent Carver, Megan Follows, our well-loved William Shatner, our adored Christopher Plummer, Douglas Campbell, Colm Feore, the list goes on and on. Eric McCormick. We've had such international luminaries. such as Peter Ustinov. We've had John Calicos, Hume Cronin, Uta Hagen, James Mason, Brian Bedford, Nicholas Pennell, some of whom I've managed and had the pleasure of working with. These are the caliber of performers who have graced the Stratford stages over the years. But one of the things that I find quite wonderful is the pay it forward position that Stratford has taken in the arts community and in the on a social level as well, in the forming of the Birmingham School or Conservatory, where young Canadian actors can take their skills and take them to the next level through working with on the stage as well as working with renowned performers as teachers. The festival gets some $300,000 through Heritage for this practice, and this is something which is really important to the longevity of arts and culture in this country. Is that pay it forward position? It is one thing to create work which people, tourists and audience members will remember. It's another thing to take that energy and put that and pay it forward to the next generation of both actors as well as directors and playwrights. Stratford has been responsible for the development and or premiere of many plays, including Harlem Duet by Janet Sears, The Swan, a massive trilogy by Peter Hinton, the former artistic director of the Natural Arts Center, and Fair Liberty's Call by Sharon Pollock. It is important that we understand the value of arts and culture, and this government understands the value of arts and culture, because every dollar we pull away from arts and culture is $10 that we're taking out of the economy. Every dollar that we invest in arts and culture brings the value of the work that's being done. It brings a social consciousness, it brings our identity, and it brings a strength of self that is purely Canadian. The Stratford Festival has done this for some 62 years. I congratulate the artistic director, past and present, and I congratulate all of those who work at the Stratford Festival, all those who helped build the Stratford Festival. And again, I congratulate my colleague from across the way for his initiative in bringing this motion forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo. Resuming debate. Reprise de débat. Accordingly, I invite the honourable member for Perth Wellington for his right of reply. The honourable member has up to 5 minutes. The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I stand here in this place for the last time presenting a private member's motion or bill, it humbles me to listen to some of the kind words I have received here this evening. Let me tell you, though, that the festival, the Stratford Festival, and its management over the years has been one of the easiest things to support and to promote in my riding. I'm not going to make a great long speech because I feel the warmth from everyone here for the arts and for the theater, Stratford Theater. And it's wonderful. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you to all those that have supported this motion, and we'll all see you at the theater, I'm quite sure. Stratford Festival invites everyone from this house to come and visit Stratford, a wonderful part of southwestern Ontario, and the greatest theater not only in Canada but also in the world. Thank you.
The question is as follows. Mr. Schellenberger, seconded by Mr. McKenzie, moved that the House recognize the Stratford Festival's distinct cultural and economic contributions to Stratford, southwestern Ontario, and Canada since its inception in 1953. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Yes? Yes? Agreed? Carried.